Has anyone ever experienced real-life porn adult film scenario? Story 1. In 2007, I was working on my first real job. Front-end web developer, the only one, small non-profit. Our IT department had only 4 people. I was 25 at the time. I had my own office that, when you shut the door, was private. The executive assistant was 23. Incredibly hot. Hotter than hot. Smoking hot. I'd been working there for about a month. I was just starting to get to know some of the other folks in the office by this point, making friends with other people in my age range. 5 years younger or older than me. As a side note, had never really dated anyone. I considered this hot before I had dated 5 different people in serious relationships in my life. Up until this point, only one of those 5 even came close to being as hot as she. I felt she was way out of my league. This girl was very friendly, but not any more so than other females in the office when talking to her. I never really had it in my head that I could ever be in a relationship with her, because I would have no chance with someone this drop-dead gorgeous. We're talking blue eyes, blonde hair, 130 pounds, and very energetic, gorgeous. Progressively, she began talking to me more and more over I am at the office one afternoon while I was working on our website. She shot me and I am out of the blue, asking if I was busy. I told her no, just working. She then asked if she could come by my office for something. I said sure. I closed the IM window immediately, forgetting about it and going back to work. 2 minutes later, she comes into my office. No smile on her face, almost a pissed-off look. I thought, oh, what did I do to piss her off? She turns upon entering and shuts the door, locks it, strolls over behind my desk and pushes my chair forward into the desk so she could get the blinds behind me. She shuts the blinds rather quickly. All the while, what's going on through my head is, okay, she shut the door, she locked it, shining the blinds. What is she going to hit me? But this time the blinds were shut. She grabs the back of my chair and spins me around. She gets on top of me and wraps her arms around my neck. You know what happens next? That was the most passionately any girl has ever kissed me in my life. I didn't know what to do for the first few seconds. I was so surprised. That feeling left very quickly, though. When I began kissing back, this went on for several minutes. She pulled away with the most devilish grin on her face and said forcefully, "You're sleeping at my place tonight." She turned and wrote her address down in a post-it note on my desk, be there by 8. She stood up and slowly strained up her clothes, adjusting my shirt, my collar, stuff like that. All the while putting her chest in front of me. After straightening up, she turned and walked to the door, unlocking and casually strolling out of my office as if we had just had a completely normal workplace interaction. To complete the story, I had the best time I've ever had over the next 2 months. While at the job, several months later we broke it off, both going out separate ways amicably. While we both enjoyed it, we had too little else in common. We were able to keep the relationship secret from all the other coworkers. It was the most daring I had ever felt during those 2 or 3 months. Mostly because I'm somewhat boring, normally still have no idea where she was into me. I could be wrong, but she wasn't trying to make any other guy jealous or anything like that. As far as I know, no one else ever knew this was going on, as she lived alone and never really hung out with other people altogether. We would basically just go to one or the other's apartment several days a week and do it all night long. It was great. After posting this, I sat there reminiscing in my head of those couple of wonderful months, and I remember that the first night Data came over at 8 p.m. I knocked on the door. No answer immediately, just a muffled, "Come on in, it's unlocked." I walked in and set my bag down near the door, taking a couple more steps into the living room down the hallway from her bedroom. I hear footsteps and turn to look there. She is standing there wearing a black and red lace undergarment, stocking, garter belt, and lace corset. Heaven, she never really gave such a black or white answer as to why she chose me, but she generally told me she found me attractive. They also have a southern accent, and she said she found that hot. Oddly enough, I've discovered that a lot of city girls share this opinion. I say this as someone who's had a southern accent their whole life and has despised it. She made no sense to me. She also liked doing the deed a lot. We did the deed usually a minimum of 2 to 3 times. Whenever we were together, sometimes 5 to 10 times a night also. Out of the 10 or so women have ever done it. With this girl was incredibly easy to get to finish. I think it must have been more that she was one of the multiple finisher types. Story 2. In New York City, my roommate and I popped into a club for a nightcap before heading home for the night. My roommate got friendly with one of the girls and gave her his number and our address. We left the club with zero expectations. A couple of hours later, around 2 to 3 a.m. There's a knock on the door, and there's our girl. She showed up. I was awake, but my roommate was asleep. So I started up with her, and she gave me some. Then she asked where my roommate was, so I brought her into his room and woke him up. You should have seen the expression on his face when he woke up to find a girl half bare in his room. He said, "Is this for me?" Funniest thing I've ever seen or heard in my life. It was either a tens or VIP in the Flatiron area. A roomie told me she got to work, she didn't ask for money, she was just really feeling it and needed it. We got lucky, right place, right time. It's like Christmas morning with a gift that needed treatment, if you cash my drift. Story 3. Not sure if this counts because it wasn't a completely random scenario, but in college I was up with my teacher the first time her lawyer boyfriend was out of town, so she tells me to come over, knock on her door, and she answers wearing some see-through lingerie. I proceed to give her a special performance for a while. Her boyfriend calls in the middle of it. Then we headed upstairs. She makes me call her by her last name the whole time afterward. We go see a movie and sit in the back so other students don't see us. Does this count if you're going to judge me for unethical behavior in a real-life corn scenario thread? No less, they offer a bit of backstory. It's not an excuse then, at least to explain she initiated it by sending me Facebook messages, texting, calling, picking me up after I had been now drinking. The afterward found out that I was not the only student to receive similar tutoring. Unethical, sure, but come on. Story: I worked for an internet service provider, and one of my roles was doing house calls for new tenants at buildings who provided service. In most of the times these visits were pretty normal, but occasionally I would end up in a situation that I'd hoped would turn into penthouse forum. Story: little didn't know that eventually this would happen, and I would completely choke. I received an install request for a condo building. I worked infrequently at first, nobody's coming to the door. So I waited a minute and then knocked again. I heard, hold on. With the door opens, there's this beautiful woman who looks half awake, and she's wearing a skimpy nightgown. I'm not positive if I noticed she was beautiful or that she was wearing a nightie, because the first thing I noticed was that one of her melons was completely out of the nightgown. I tried to play it off like everything was fine, and I told her I was there to hook up her service. She tells me it's in the bedroom and starts to lead me there. As soon as she turns around, I can see her cheeks hanging out from the bottom of the gown in my mind. I'm trying to rationalize that this woman is just completely comfortable with herself. Or maybe she doesn't realize how much she's hanging out. When we walk into her bedroom, she points to the location she wanted, activated, and then climbs into bed. I'm getting a full view of everything down there again to try to ignore it by having small talk and pretending everything is normal. I start working on setting up her connection. She's adjusting in the bed and still talking to me. When I look over, I can now see both of her melons hanging out, and she's still talking to me, like nothing is wrong. I thought the situation couldn't get stranger. But then she starts talking to me about how she was in a car accident early in the morning. She says how she had been drinking and smashed up her car pretty badly. Even worse was that she had just picked it up after getting the car fixed from previous drunk driving accident. Now I'm starting to think that this trick is a bit off. She doesn't fail at proceeding to tell me that. Hopefully she won't have to pay for the repair work, because there's a mechanic in the building that usually does work for free when she gives him sloppy. At this point, I'm wondering what I walked into this situation was always a fantasy, but it was just too much for me. There were red flags all over the place. I'm now wondering what I'm going to do if she makes an advance toward me. My junk was still telling me to go for it, but my brain was telling me that I'm going to regret it. Luckily, I had an easy out. I was close to finishing, and she got a phone call from the mechanic. She tells me how she has to run over to his place to give him the keys to her car, but that should be right back and to please stay, because wants to tip me when she left it finished as fast as I could, and I practically ran out of her home once later. I couldn't get her out of my mind, she was so attractive, and I almost felt bad for not sticking around. But she had to have been crazy, being too curious for my own good. I decided to check her email account that I'd created. What do I find? An invoice from an online pharmacy where she was purchasing medication. Sometimes it pays to just use your head. Once in a while, he just dodged a bullet. Like Neo Story 5. I'm a banquet server, and one event I spilled candle hot wax all over my uniform at that point. My manager was thinking about just sending me home. One of my coworkers informed us that ironing the wax through a layer of brown paper bag gets waxed out of anything. The manager gave us the key to open any hotel room and told us the closet iron is in a hotel room. We went to the front desk and asked where an empty room is, and that it was an emergency, so my hot coworker and I wander up to an empty hotel room during our work shift. I did the deed with her, like I imagine myself doing it with Sasha Grey or Elise Ann. Dang, I'm saving this as a helpful tip for when I get wax on my clothes. If you want to take note of this in the future, like the video and subscribe to the channel. Story 6. I shared a cab with some random girl from the bar to lower the cost. She invited me up to her place. I thought she was about my age, early 20s. and found out sometime during the night she was 37. Asians are impossible to ID on age well in the morning. As I was getting ready to leave, she tells me, "I should introduce you to my daughter. It'd be much better for her than the guy she normally hangs out with." I wish I had taken her up in her offer, but I got scared off and she got out of there, so it was a great night. But had it not chickened out, could have been an epic mother-daughter moment. Story 7. It was of course a dark and rainy night. My car broke down several hours from my home. A friend's brother was working on his father's farm not too far away. It is rather handy under the hood. He shows up and cannot get my car started, so he takes me back to his father's farm. Everyone is gone and the house is locked, so we end up in the barn alone in the dark and the rain queue. The music, it gets better though. When the rain stops, he takes me back to my car and spends a couple of hours getting it to work. But now it is almost done. Asked how I could repay him and brought me over to the hood of my car right there at the side of the road. I still get urges when I smell hay or look too long at the hood of my car. Okay, to be clear for everyone, I definitely gave him appropriate cues to suggest I wanted him, and when he moved in I definitely reciprocated. He also would have stopped it had I said no. I know this guy really. I swear nothing close to creepy, just good spicy, hot fun story. Okay. I'm literally sitting here on my phone reading this exact post at an airport waiting on a flight in a smoking bar. An older woman, maybe 45, walks up and sits down and orders a double. She makes a few comments to me, which I sort of brush off because I'm busy reading this post and keep on Reddit. Eventually, she turns towards me. We're sitting side by side at the bar and asks me what I'm reading. I say flippantly, "It's a blog." I know. I just didn't feel like going into it. She presses and asks what it's about to, which I chuckle. She asks again and I replied, "Well, this specific one is an open question to the bloggers about people being caught in real-life porn scenarios." She responded positively, and I told her a few of the better stories that I had to read so far. She's pissed that the guy didn't do it with a woman who answered the door with her melons out, and we had some laughs throughout. All this, she starts touching my arm and leg briefly, and I kid you not, she leans in and asks, "Do you want to have a scenario right now?" Bear in mind I'm 26, she's 45 or so, but good looking. I look around and ask how she buys my drink and makes me follow her to a family restroom where she needs to pull me down. With her words spoken at all, and get this, without saying a word, she gets up, says thank you, and walks out. I'm back at the bar now. She's not. And holy crap. What are the chances this is probably the only time someone ever got any action from using something like Reddit? Story 9. A few years ago, when I was religious, I served a mission for my church one day. I was working knocking on doors in France, and a hot girl up in the door before I could finish my introduction. She said, "Are you American?" I responded, "Yes," but she then invited me in, closed the door behind me, and said, "And parents are out of town for the weekend. What do you want to do?" I was totally shocked by this. Unfortunately, I was a religious idiot back then, and wasn't interested in doing the deed. So I replied, "Oh, that's too bad. I'll come back when they're around," and then left storytelling. So I'm in college, living by myself in an apartment on Saturday. I'm sitting on my couch watching TV. When I get a knock on my door, I open the door to find a really cute girl wearing a skirt and a spaghetti strap top. I tell her, "Hello, can I help you?" She proceeds to try and sell me magazine subscriptions. Now normally I tell whoever to piss off, but since she was cute, I played the part, inquired about what magazine she was offering. Turns out the only thing she was offering that I was interested in, I already subscribed to, and told her that. I was sorry. She proceeds to tell me how it's hot now. She isn't used to the heat yet. Ask her if you wanted something to drink. She said, "Please," then asks, "Would you also mind if I come inside and just take a break for a minute?" I told her that. I didn't mind, so she comes inside and sits in the carpet in front of the couch, takes out some of her paperwork, and begins counting up her numbers or something, not exactly sure what she was doing. I bring her some water and sit on the couch and make small talk. 'Cause I'm sitting there, I noticed I can see the girl's undies or the way she was sitting. This girl had some really nice legs, and I think she caught me looking because she said, "Oh, I didn't know I was flashing you." I responded with, "I barely noticed." "Well, it's no big deal anyway. It's just like a bathing suit," she said in one of the greatest strokes of genius to ever come out of my mind, and made the comment, "Oh, really? If that's the case, then just take the skirt off." Before she even could react, I said, "See, it's not the same." She looks at me, smiles, stands up, and takes it off. Holy freaking crap, I can't believe that worked. It was all I could think. Not only did it work, she proceeded to walk over to the couch and sit next to me. Kiss her, you idiot. Went through my head, so I did lots of stuff ensued. Never saw her, heard from her again. Don't even remember her name. It probably wasn't even a real name to begin with. Went to the clinic to be sure she didn't give me anything. Funky, thankfully she didn't crazy day. How did that even work? Well, you missed 100 of all the shots you don't take. Right, story 11. After living abroad for a couple of years, I was reuniting with a recently married buddy, his wife and another friend. After multiple drinks, we all decided to go to a bar. It wasn't too busy, but events proceeded more or less as one would expect. Eventually, we can't find the other friend though. I went looking and proceeded through the bathroom and the bar and made a wide circle of the club. This particular club had separate booths for dances in the far side of the establishment, but he didn't seem to be in any of those either. On the way back to the stage, I passed by dancer alone on a couch. She stands up, wearing her undies, and says, "You look like you need a dance, honey, a scopy around." She's not a nukut, but still, a very cute brunette, my type, drunk but not super drunk. I remember that I'm out of cash, maybe after a trip to the cash machine. She returns the scope out and states, "Ah, you're pretty cute, just come with me." She proceeded to give me a killer dance and a surreal stay, trying to decide if I should just start writing my dear. Penthouse, I never thought this would happen to me. Let her on the stage, I staggered back to my friends with a big grin. We left for a normal bar shortly afterward. Story 2 off. When I was 18, I would hang out all night with friends in front of Ticketmasters to score tickets for a buddy who was a scalper. This was 1992. I was waiting for NXCS tickets at a warehouse in Palo Alto with my buddy and these two art school lesbian chicks. My friend, the scalper, had left his Volkswagen van there and had his girlfriend pick him up. Eventually, the girl stole me to get in the van with him. While my buddy saved our spa in line, they started kissing me. Pure lesbian action, and I asked, "Aren't you two lesbians?" They actually said, "We are, but we like you." 20 years and loads of substance use later, I can still remember that night. Like it was yesterday, best night of my life. These scalpers don't deserve action like this. I hate them with a passion. Story 13 was at a hotel taking a shower. The maid entered and asked if I needed any towels. It didn't, and was actually a little pissed that she'd enter while I was showering. The bathroom didn't even have a door. I'm done showering now, and pretty much dressed, but still shirtless. She comes in again, bringing towels. Like what? But that mentions that she likes my arms. She asked if she could squeeze my bicep. Sure, I say. And she goes on to touch my chest, then my stomach. Then the next thing I know, she's sitting me down in the bed. I had a double room with a friend, and this was all the while he was out getting breakfast in the lobby. This was the first tip I ever left. A maid. Story 14. Got a call from my girlfriend. "You should come home from work early. I mean, you're bad making out with your female friend." Erosion. There are two girls in my bed wearing only a couple of my dress shirts. That was a good day. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you made it this far, I'm sure you'll also enjoy what was your 1-in-a-million chance moment. Story 4 was just surreal. See you in that video.